I'd like to introduce Laurie from Northern California in the United States. Thank you for joining me, Laurie.
Oh, thank you for having me, Linda.
Could you tell me when you first started to notice there was something wrong?
Well, I was kind of on the lookout, if you will, for this because my father and my grandmother both had Hailey Hailey disease. But it didn't manifest itself in my skin, I should say, until I was about 21, but that's been over 30 years ago, and that was shortly after the death of my brother-in-law. That was very traumatic, and then my skin just went crazy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So, when you say crazy, I'm guessing you mean blisters and weeping?
Well, yes. I had it all. I had terrible blisters underneath my arms, in the armpit area, under my breast, in the groin. Not only that, very raw lesions that are kind of like little razor blade cuts, if you will. And I know a lot of my fellow sufferers suffer from the same thing. The burning can be excruciating. It feels something like a really terrible sunburn or a second-degree burn. Then, of course, it exudes fluid, and that fluid is rather sticky, and then you have the problem with it sticking to your clothing, and then you move and your skin tears, and it's just it's really a terrible, terrible disease. We're finding more and more about the different symptoms.
Mm-hmm. So when you were diagnosed with Hailey Hailey's disease, what medication were you offered?
Well, there's so many, it's hard to recall all of them, but of course the typical antibiotics like Teflex, penicillin, tetracycline. On a few occasions there was the Cipro, and then there were steroid injections like Kenalog, and I was even put on Dapsone, which was developed for leprosy. And then there are topicals like Dermavate, Tenavate, Bactrafen, or Bactroban. And then about 10 years ago, I learned about silver sulfadiazine, I think it's called, but we call it silver cream. And that actually helped with the burning, but there's so many different antibiotics. Like I said, I can't even remember all of them.
And could you ever manage to get your Hailey Hailey's under control?
I could. There would be periods of remission. I would have a few months, and often in my 20s, I would have a year or two. And then in my 30s, it gradually progressed, and I was having fewer remissions. And then up into the 40s, and then it was getting to the point where I would only have a few weeks of remission through the whole year. And sometimes it wouldn't be too bad. Maybe under the arms, and that's it. Then other times, it was under the arms and the breast, in the groin, on the back, on the neck, all at the same time, and that would last for months, and nothing was really touching it. And I use a lot of alternative therapies as well. I've been very interested in health and wellness for decades, and that would help too, but I never could fully get a handle on it up until I started researching LDN.
So before you started LDN, what would you say your quality of life was like on a score of 1 to 10, and 10 being the best?
Well, up until I started, the quality of life wasn't good, because here you are, you're almost immobile because it hurts so terribly to move. You move your arms, and you're broke out there, and it cracks, and it bleeds, and it burns. You're self-conscious because you don't want to have any spots leaking, if you will, when you're in company, amongst friends even. Very difficult to walk when it's in the groin area. So you stay home a lot, and you try to keep yourself positive, but sometimes mentally it can really affect you. It can be very depressing.
Mm-hmm.
And very depressing, I might add, for your mates and your friends, because there's nothing really they can do, and they feel I have such wonderful friends, and there's just, nothing that they could do. And so this too is what gave me such impetus to look for something. I knew there had to be something, and I know it's so important for us to, I have found eating right and staying as healthy as we can. But
so I'm going to press you there, Laurie. What would you say your quality of life was on that score of 1 to 10?
Oh, I would say about a 4.
Okay.
And I'm a pretty positive person, but I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I took a memory lane there for a minute. It was,
so,
no, it wasn't good.
Yeah, that's fine. How did you hear about LDN?
I actually was on a health site, Macola.com, and there was mention of LDN, and so I was looking at all the different symptoms that people were suffering and getting relief, and the diseases that people were getting relief. So it just struck a note with me, and so I just studied and researched every piece of material, every website, went on the National Institutes of Health website. And then what really, really hit home was the fact that we had so many opioid receptors in the skin. I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, this has got to work. This has got to work. So it was like 2 or 3 months of research every day, any moment I had, until I asked one of my physicians, my dermatologist, if I could try it. And of course, well, she said no. She didn't want any red flags, basically, on her practice. And so I didn't give up. I went to another doctor who actually had did research on Hailey Hailey disease. And he told me that he didn't feel that it could help, that anything I might have read was anecdotal. So then on my 3rd try, I looked on the internet and found doctors that were prescribing LDN, and it just so happened that one was in my town where I lived. So I asked him, I said, I'm not coming to you if you don't give me this LDN to try. And I explained our disease, and he said, you know what, that makes sense. No problem. So that was about 17 months ago, August of 2012, that I started.
When you first started, did you notice any initial side effects?
You know, all I can say is for the first 3 or 4 nights, I did wake up during that endorphin peak that I've learned about, around 3 a.m. But then after those first few days, I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. I couldn't believe it. And I woke up feeling refreshed and fantastic, actually. I had more mental clarity than I'd had in years. The brain fog was gone. It was exciting.
And how long did it take before you started to notice improvements in your Hailey Haileys?
I would safely say about 3 weeks. I started noticing a huge difference in my skin, clearing up, not having the fluid exuding, and just healing. It was just amazing. You know, when you've had this disease for decades, you get to know what works and what doesn't. And I knew immediately that the LDN was working for me. And I just felt it would work for others as well.
So I'm just trying to get a picture here. Had your Hailey Hailey's disease in this 17 months healed completely? Would you say you've had a period of being clear?
I have had several months of being clear, but as in life, oftentimes there can be stressful situations. And so there were times when my skin did break out, but it never broke out to the degree that it had in the past, and it still hasn't. I get a few lesions here and there, and as I said, with stress comes all the stress hormone, and it seems to trump everything else in our body, every other chemical in our body. So, but I can honestly say that even with everything that I've gone through in the last year, I would just be a mess if it wasn't for the LDN. I know that.
And would you say that the breakouts heal quicker than they did prior to LDN, or about the same?
Oh, no, absolutely healed quicker, and do heal quicker. And since the LDN, I've never had any breakouts in certain areas of my body, under my arms. And just different places that I normally would have the breakouts. I don't have them.
Well, if you did an average now of being on LDN, what would you say your quality of life is, taking into account the breakouts with the period of remission?
I would say a 9.
Really? That's amazing. That really is. So what would you say to other people with Hailey Hailey's disease that are contemplating trying LDN?
I would say don't give up. Keep trying to get a doctor to prescribe LDN. It may not be that you will have 100% clearness or continual remission, but it will so much improve the quality of life. Of that I'm certain, because there's so many of us now. I started, along with a friend, I started a Facebook group, Hailey Hailey Disease New Approaches, where we discuss different approaches, holistic and natural approaches, and we're finding so many are getting such fantastic results with the low-dose naltrexone, and some not even changing too much about their protocols, their dietary protocols or whatever. But it seems like about 99% are getting good to fantastic results. So I would say just don't give up. It took me 3 doctors, but it'll happen if you just don't give up on that.
Thank you very much, Laurie, for sharing your experience with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And you know, Linda, here's something else that a lot of folks don't realize. What comes with Hailey Hailey disease is not just the blisters or the lesions or the burning, but also many of us suffer from secondary diseases or health issues because of that calcium imbalance. I'm finding more and more of us have suffered from different types of cancer, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. All of these go back, it seems, to that calcium imbalance as well. So that's another reason why I just really advocate LDN, because so many folks with those particular health issues and diseases are getting fantastic results as well with low-dose naltrexone.